Annie looked like one of the happiest movies of the 1980s, filled with cheerful songs, dancing children, and dreams of a better tomorrow. But behind the smiles, the cast's real lives became far darker than anyone expected. Some lost their loved ones, others vanished from fame, and a few battled devastating illnesses that stunned fans worldwide. This is how they changed in 2026. Albert Finney as Oliver Daddy. Warbucks. Oliver Daddy Warbucks was remembered for his bald head, stern voice, and the touching scenes where his cold personality slowly softened around Annie in Annie. Born on May 9, 1936 in Salford, England, Albert Finney was 46 years old when he brought both authority and warmth to the powerful billionaire. His performance added emotional depth to the movie and further strengthened his reputation as one of Britain's finest actors. Albert Finney died on February 7, 2019, at the age of 82 at the Royal Marsden Hospital in London after complications from a chest infection following years of battling kidney cancer. His health had declined significantly after his 2011 diagnosis, forcing him through difficult treatments during the final years of his life. By the time of his death, he remained one of the most respected figures in British cinema. Away from the cameras, Finney's personal life was filled with loneliness and failed relationships. He married 4 times, but every marriage eventually ended because of his strong desire for independence and refusal to live a settled family life for long. Years of heavy drinking and smoking also damaged his health long before cancer appeared, quietly weakening him behind the scenes. Even while admired around the world, Finney struggled deeply with isolation, as many of the people closest to him slowly drifted away over the years. Edward Herrmann as Franklin D. Roosevelt. With his calm smile and confident voice, Franklin D. Roosevelt brought warmth and hope to some of the film's most uplifting moments in Annie. Born on July 21, 1943 in Washington, D.C., Edward Herrmann was 39 years old when he appeared in the movie and gave the American president a gentle humanity that audiences immediately connected with. That performance quietly reinforced Herrmann's reputation as one of Hollywood's most dependable and comforting screen presences. Edward Herrmann died on December 31, 2014, at the age of 71 in a New York hospital after a devastating battle with terminal brain cancer. The disease spread aggressively only months after his diagnosis in 2014, leaving him physically weakened far faster than his family expected. By the time of his death, he had built an estimated net worth of around $10 million through decades of work in film, television, and voice acting. Away from the cameras, Herrmann carried emotional wounds that lasted for years. His first marriage to Lee Curran ended in a painful divorce in 1991 that reportedly left him deeply heartbroken, though he later found peace with his second wife, Starr Herrmann, who stayed beside him throughout his final illness while raising their 2 children together. Even while battling brain cancer, friends said he tried to remain optimistic and comforting toward others until the very end, which made his quiet final months even more tragic for those who loved him. In the end, the man who gave audiences so much warmth on screen left the world surrounded by sadness, courage, and dignity. Carol Burnett as Miss Hannigan. With her messy hair, drunken tantrums, and cruel treatment of the orphans, Miss Hannigan became one of the most unforgettable characters in Annie. Born on April 26, 1933, in San Antonio, Texas, Carol Burnett was 49 years old when she took on the role and filled the character with both dark comedy and chaotic energy. The performance became another major highlight in Burnett's legendary entertainment career and helped make Miss Hannigan a pop culture icon for generations of viewers. By 2026, Carol Burnett is 93 years old and still occasionally appears at special events while focusing more on charity work supporting women and troubled children. After decades of television success, best-selling books, and real estate investments, Her $45 million net worth has allowed her to live a far quieter life away from Hollywood. But behind the laughter, Burnett endured years of emotional pain. Her 21-year marriage to producer Joe Hamilton slowly collapsed because of constant conflict and his alcoholism, while later rumors of problems with her second husband, Brian Miller, reportedly left her emotionally exhausted for years. The greatest tragedy came in 2002 when her daughter, Carrie Hamilton, died from lung cancer at only 38 years old, a loss that pushed Burnett into deep depression and therapy. Long before that heartbreak, she had also survived a serious 1969 car accident that left permanent scars on her chin after reconstructive surgery. April Lerman as Kate. Kate was remembered as the gentle orphan who always looked after the younger children and brought warmth to the darker moments in Annie. Born on February 6, 1969 in Los Angeles, California, April Lerman was 13 years old when she played the role and gave Kate a calm kindness that quietly stood out among the other orphans. Her performance helped make the orphanage scenes feel more emotional and sincere for audiences watching the film. By 2026, April Lerman is 57 years old and lives a peaceful life away from Hollywood while dedicating most of her time to education and mentoring young students through the arts. After stepping away from acting years earlier, she focused on family life and teaching instead of pursuing celebrity fame, choosing a far more private path than many former child stars. But behind that gentle image, Lerman's adult life was marked by emotional struggles and painful disappointment. Her perfectionist personality often pushed her into feelings of loneliness and emotional exhaustion as she struggled to balance work, personal expectations, and family responsibilities. Rather than allowing those hardships to completely define her life, Lerman eventually turned her attention toward raising her children and helping young people through education. Her quiet journey became a story about finding peace after years of emotional instability and personal loss. Geoffrey Holder as Punjab audiences still remember Punjab for his towering height, mysterious stare, and graceful movements beside Daddy Warbucks throughout Annie. Born on August 1, 1930, in Port of Spain, Trinidad and Tobago, Geoffrey Holder was 52 years old when he played the role and gave the character a magical, almost larger-than-life presence. His performance became another unforgettable part of a career built through acting, dancing, directing, and stage work. Geoffrey Holder died on October 5, 2014, at the age of 84 in New York after suffering complications from severe pneumonia caused by years of declining respiratory health. Long-term smoking had badly damaged his lungs and gradually weakened his body, forcing him away from the stage during the later years of his life. At the time of his death, Holder had accumulated an estimated net worth of around $5 million through acting, dancing, painting, directing, and commercial work across several decades. Although Holder remained married to dancer and actress Carmen de Lavallade from 1955 until his death, their relationship endured long periods of separation and emotional tension caused by creative disagreements and different artistic ambitions. Even though they eventually reunited and stayed together, those difficult years reportedly left deep emotional wounds for both of them. As his health deteriorated, Holder also struggled emotionally with losing the physical strength that had once defined him as a dancer and performer, making his final years especially painful as he watched his body slowly fail him. Eileen Quinn as Annie. The curly red-haired orphan with endless optimism, bright singing, and the famous song Tomorrow made Annie one of the most recognizable child characters in movie history through Annie. Born on June 28, 1971 in Yardley, Pennsylvania, Eileen Quinn was only 11 years old when she played Annie, and instantly became an international child star. By 2026, Eileen Quinn is 55 years old and lives a much quieter life in New Jersey while working as a teacher and leading the independent band Leapin' Lizards. Although she still occasionally attends Annie-related events, her life today is far removed from the massive fame she experienced as a child. But growing up under worldwide attention came with a painful emotional cost. Shortly after Annie became a huge success, Quinn was humiliated by receiving a Razzie Award for Worst Supporting Actress, a harsh public embarrassment that deeply damaged her confidence while she was still a young teenager. As she grew older, the pressure of constantly being identified only as Annie reportedly left her feeling trapped and directionless, forcing her to step away from acting several times just to rediscover her identity outside the spotlight. When major Hollywood opportunities slowly disappeared, Quinn quietly rebuilt her life through smaller stages, teaching, and music, instead of chasing the fame she once had. Her story remains one of Hollywood's clearest childhood stardom. Bernadette Peters as Lily St. Regis. Audiences still remember Lily St. Regis for her glamorous outfits, playful smile, and sly manipulation throughout Annie. Born on February 28, 1948 in New York City, Bernadette Peters was 34 years old when she portrayed Lily and gave the character a mix of elegance, humor, and hidden sadness beneath the scheming personality. The role became another major moment in Peters' long career and further established her as one of the most recognizable musical performers of her generation. By 2026, Bernadette Peters is 78 years old and lives quietly in New York, while only appearing in carefully selected stage performances and charity events supporting animal rescue organizations. After decades of success on Broadway, in film, music, and children's publishing, her estimated net worth has grown to around $40 million, allowing her to slowly step back from the non-stop pressures of the entertainment industry. But away from the spotlight, Peters spent years struggling with heartbreak and loneliness. Her relationship with Steve Martin ended painfully in 1982 after emotional differences slowly pushed them apart, leaving her devastated during the height of her career. The deepest wound came in 2005 when her husband, Michael Wittenberg, died suddenly in a horrific helicopter crash, a tragedy that reportedly pushed her into years of depression and emotional isolation before she eventually found the strength to return to performing again. Even today, many fans feel there is a quiet sadness behind Bernadette Peters' graceful smile that never fully disappeared after losing the love of her life. Anne Reinking as Grace Farrell. Grace Farrell was known for her elegant dancing, warm smile, and gentle loyalty beside Daddy Warbucks throughout Annie. Born on November 10, 1949 in Seattle, Washington, Anne Reinking was 32 years old when she brought both sophistication and emotional warmth to the character. Her performance added even more charm to the film while continuing to strengthen her legendary reputation on Broadway as both a performer and choreographer. Anne Reinking died on December 12, 2020, at the age of 71 while visiting family in Washington after suffering fatal heart complications in her sleep. The tragedy shocked many people close to her because she had spent most of her life quietly living with Marfan syndrome, a serious genetic disorder affecting the heart and skeletal system. Behind her graceful public image, Reinking's personal life was filled with emotional instability and heartbreak. Her first marriage to Larry Small ended quickly, while her second marriage to Peter Talbert also collapsed after years together, leaving her repeatedly struggling to find lasting emotional security. At the same time, her turbulent relationship with choreographer Bob Fosse reportedly placed enormous psychological pressure on her because of his jealousy and controlling behavior. Even while dazzling audiences on stage, Reinking quietly carried a lifelong fear that her fragile heart condition could suddenly end her life at any moment. In the end, the woman who spent decades dancing with extraordinary energy left the world quietly in her sleep, far away from the spotlight she once commanded. Tim Curry as Rooster Hannigan. With his slicked back hair, exaggerated dance moves, and loud, sarcastic energy, Rooster Hannigan brought chaos and dark comedy to Annie. Born on April 19, 1946, in Grappan Hall, England, Tim Curry was 36 years old when he played the role and completely stole attention whenever he appeared on screen. His unforgettable performance showed the same wild charisma and theatrical intensity that later made him one of the most iconic cult actors in entertainment history. By 2026, Tim Curry is 80 years old and lives quietly in Los Angeles while focusing mainly on rehabilitation and occasional voice acting projects for animation and video games. His estimated net worth remains around $5 million, supported largely through royalties from classic films and voice work after his serious health problems forced him away from live performances. Behind the scenes, Curry's later life became painfully difficult after suffering a devastating stroke in 2012 that left him partially paralyzed and severely affected his speech. For a performer once famous for dominating the stage with limitless energy, suddenly depending on a wheelchair became emotionally crushing and effectively ended his on-screen acting career. At the same time, years of loneliness, the absence of a lasting marriage, and declining health caused by heavy smoking reportedly made his private life increasingly isolated and emotionally heavy. Still, many fans continue to admire Tim Curry not only for his unforgettable performances, but also for the quiet strength he has shown while enduring so much suffering in silence. Toni Ann Gismondi, as Molly Molly was the smallest orphan in Annie, remembered for her innocent smile and the sweet moments in the orphanage scenes. Born on October 1, 1975 in New York City, Toni Ann Gismondi was only 7 years old when she became one of the most beloved child stars from the film. Her gentle performance left a lasting impression on audiences and made her a familiar face of 1980s family entertainment. By 2026, Toni Ann Gismondi is 51 years old and lives a quiet life in New Jersey, while occasionally singing at local events, weddings, and Annie reunion celebrations. Although she rarely returns to acting, she still enjoys reconnecting with fans who remember her from Annie decades later. But the pressure of childhood fame became emotionally exhausting much faster than most people realized. After the excitement surrounding Annie slowly faded, Gismondi reportedly struggled with the constant expectations and comparisons placed on her as a former child star, eventually deciding to leave acting completely to protect her peace of mind. As she grew older, balancing family responsibilities, marriage, and raising children also became emotionally draining at times, leaving her overwhelmed and exhausted during difficult periods of adulthood. Still, Toni Ann Gismondi quietly found happiness in a simpler life, far away from the painful pressures in Hollywood. Roseanne Sorrentino as Pepper stood out for her rebellious attitude, sharp comebacks, and constant troublemaking inside the orphanage in Annie. Born on January 15, 1968 in New York City, Roseanne Sorrentino was 14 years old when she played the role and brought bold energy and attitude to the group of orphans. Her strong personality on screen helped make Pepper one of the film's most memorable supporting characters. By 2026, Roseanne Sorrentino is 58 years old and lives in New York while working in comedy and hosting her own web show online. Her estimated net worth is around $200,000, earned through smaller entertainment projects, online appearances, and comedy performances after leaving mainstream acting years earlier. Although her Hollywood career never fully continued after Annie, she still maintains a loyal following among longtime fans of the film. Behind the humor, however, Sorrentino faced years of emotional instability and disappointment after leaving acting. The intense competition and pressure inside the entertainment industry reportedly became so overwhelming that she dropped out of school early and abandoned her acting dreams altogether, while personal family problems further complicated her young adulthood. Over time, she began using dark humor as a coping mechanism to hide emotional pain and navigate difficult moments in her life. Eventually, becoming the mother of 2 daughters gave her a renewed sense of purpose and emotional stability after years of confusion and frustration. Roseanne Sorrentino's story became more about quietly rebuilding a life after childhood stardom disappeared. Lois DeBanzi as Eleanor Roosevelt. Eleanor Roosevelt appeared as calm, compassionate, and quietly supportive during her scenes in Annie. Born on August 4, 1930, in Glasgow, Scotland, Lois Dabansy was 52 years old when she played the First Lady and brought warmth and dignity to the role. Her graceful performance reflected the same quiet elegance that audiences later continued to associate with her throughout her long stage and screen career. Lois Dabansy died from natural causes on April 3, 2021, at the age of 90 in England after years of declining health gradually forced her away from acting. As her body weakened with age, she became far less active publicly and spent her later years living a quieter and more private life. Behind her calm public image, Dabansy spent many years quietly battling loneliness. Her long marriage to George Dabansy eventually ended in a painful divorce that reportedly left a lasting emotional emptiness during the later years of her life. Growing older without a lifelong partner beside her became increasingly difficult emotionally, especially as health problems slowly limited her independence and artistic work. Even so, Lois Dabansy remained admired for the warmth and gentleness she carried into every performance, qualities that continued to define her long after the spotlight faded away. Robin Ignico as Duffy Bright Energy, playful reactions, and youthful charm helped Duffy become one of the familiar orphan faces in Annie. Born on August 22, 1970, Robin Ignico was 11 years old during the filming of Annie and arrived with experience from commercials and television work already behind her. The movie briefly positioned her as another promising young talent, connected to one of Hollywood's biggest family musicals of the 1980s. By 2026, Robin Ignico is 56 years old and lives an extremely private life far away from the entertainment industry. With an estimated net worth of around $200,000, she quietly stepped away from acting decades ago after appearing in projects such as Newsies and Trapper John, M.D. Outside of a few rare Annie reunion appearances, very little about her personal life, marriage, or career has been publicly revealed. That disappearance from Hollywood reportedly came after years of growing disappointment and emotional exhaustion. Although Annie brought attention to her at a young age, Ignico struggled with the frustration of repeatedly receiving minor supporting roles while other child stars rose much higher in the industry. The constant pressure and inability to break beyond small television appearances reportedly left her emotionally drained during her teenage years, eventually pushing her to abandon acting completely by the end of the 1980s. Unlike many former child stars who continued chasing fame, Robin Ignico quietly chose peace, privacy, and distance from the spotlight instead. Robert Taylor as Armand Duval. Armand Duval was remembered as the wealthy, deeply romantic young man whose tragic love story in the movie. Born on August 5, 1911, in Philly, Nebraska, Robert Taylor rose to fame during the 1930s after MGM transformed him into one of the studio's biggest stars and most recognizable screen idols. Robert Taylor died from lung cancer on June 8, 1969, at the age of 57 at St. John's Health Center in Santa Monica, California. Years of smoking up to 3 packs of cigarettes a day had completely destroyed his lungs, leading to repeated hospitalizations during the final months of his life after doctors discovered cancer while performing lung surgery in 1968. His funeral at Forest Lawn Memorial Park drew many Hollywood legends, while his close friend Ronald Reagan delivered the eulogy honoring one of cinema's most famous leading men. Yet behind the glamour and success, Taylor's private life became increasingly tragic during his later years. His marriage to Barbara Stanwyck collapsed after years of emotional distance and pressure from Hollywood fame, ending one of the industry's most famous relationships in painful divorce. Even after finding happiness again with actress Ursula Thies, tragedy struck shortly before Taylor's own death, when her son Michael was found dead from a drug overdose after years of mental illness and legal troubles. The shock emotionally devastated Taylor during the final weeks of his cancer battle, leaving his last days filled not only with physical suffering, but also overwhelming grief and heartbreak. That was the cast of Annie in 2026 that few fans ever imagined. Which cast member's story surprised you the most? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more incredible then and now stories from Hollywood's most beloved classics.